mean, I'm just Chris from Leicester. And, I kind of got to thinking, well, maybe I could go to LA and do this on a bigger scale with the people that I was always inspired by. So I packed 2 suitcases and it was pretty dramatic. I mean, I left my whole life and headed to LA with a dream. And Hollywood is the land of dreams.
Welcome to Cutting Edge, the podcast, created and brought to you by L'Oréal Professional Products, an exclusive series about the world's top hairstylists. Today, I have the great privilege of sitting down with superstar celebrity hairstylist Chris Appleton, the man behind the iconic hairstyles of Kim Kardashian, Jennifer Lopez, and Ariana Grande, just to name a few.
You're going too fast.
Oh my God.
C'est bon? So hello, Chris. Welcome to Cutting Edge, the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We are so happy to have you. Welcome in London. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. And also, welcome in the L'Oréal family and in the L'Oréal Professional Products.
I know, back kind of from when I started in the beginning. It's been so fun to be back and, see the world of L'Oréal. Yeah.
No, we are so happy to have you here. And as you may know, Cutting Edge, the podcast, is really a place where we try to gather the most influential voices of the hair industry. So, of course, we had to have you on the mic today.
Thank you.
And we are really trying to create a place where hairstylists can come to listen to powerful voices, where they get advices, information, inspiration. So I'm sure you will have plenty of nice things to say to your peers. And they will be so happy to have your feedbacks.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think so many people think, a lot of people say to me now, oh, you're successful or you've done this. And it's interesting because, I still feel like the kid at 13 that just loved doing hair. And, there's so many sort of experiences in my life which have been so challenging.
Of course.
It's funny, people just kind of see the polished version, which I guess is we're responsible for that for social media and we put out the best version of ourselves. But I think the interesting part of the journey and part of the book has been to actually really go behind the scenes of how, I've fallen on my face so many more times than, I've been successful.
Yeah.
And I think there was a real beauty in being so honest and vulnerable about that. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
I think we should start maybe by the beginning, where you came from and what led you to the hairstyling métier.
Well, I come from a town called Leicester in the Midlands. And interestingly, at the age of 9, I guess was my first time with hair. My first model was my mum. And I think I really did it because I wanted to somehow make her feel better about herself. She had quite a bad childhood. She lost her parents at a very young age. And I felt like she had this sadness, which I wanted to sort of somehow correct. So I was always very sort of creative and painted, and I was good with my hands. I later understood that I was dyslexic, so I realized I wasn't sort of learning like everyone else as a very visual person, but I felt that I recognized that when I worked with my hands. So I used to do her hair, interestingly, I'm not sure what the styles were like, but when she stood up and looked in the mirror, I found that very sort of powerful. I saw that she reacted to the look I gave her, which, would either she would look more glamorous or more edgy, or it might have been a bad hairstyle, but I saw a response and I really liked that. I thought, oh, this is really amazing. You get to make people feel something. So from a young age, I knew I wanted to be a part of that. And I got a job in the salon at the age of 13. And I remember people walking in one way and walking out another. And I was very, again, sort of empowering women and men was something I was like, wow, you get to make people feel something.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning at the age of 13. I just really wanted to then master my craft. So then that was a long journey into pretty much learning everything I could about hair, every, genre, oh my God, if there was something I didn't know, I wanted to learn it.
Yeah, because you seem to be very intuitive about hairstyling, but I guess you were self-taught, but you also spend a lot of time working, because sometimes, as you say, people think, oh yeah, I'm a hairstylist, I know how to do, I'm good with my hand, but it comes with a lot of work and a lot of work in the salon at the beginning.
Well, there's so much people don't know. I mean, even when I took Kim Kardashian blonde, like a lot of people just thought I randomly bleached her hair and I didn't know anything about color. But I even did the L'Oreal color degree. You know, we have I remember when I worked with L'Oreal, there's like a whole process, like a science. You know, you even get the hat at the end. There's so much I've learned along the way. And then I guess people see the end result and they kind of think, they don't really know the story and the hardship in between it all. And I say hardship because it really was a grind. You know, I come from a small town where, you know, there wasn't really much opportunity or I guess sort of people I could follow in the footsteps of. So I was kind of trying to figure it out, but I knew I wanted it to be on a bigger scale of helping people. So something that I guess was once a dream, like I used to try and make my mom look like what I saw on the people on TV, like Hollywood stars.
And did you have a particular hairstylist that you were, looking up, like a mentor or an inspiration?
I think for me, I found more inspiration in like, I'm quite fascinated by like Hollywood and like Marilyn Monroe, how she had such amazing hair even back in the day when we didn't have all of the, you know, the toners and the conditioning treatments and the hair extensions and wigs. You know, I know all the secrets and they didn't have that available then. So I'm quite fascinated by like old Hollywood stars and how they could look the way they look. And then equally, you know, I'll be sitting on a tube in London and just sort of looking at, you know, real women and girls, how they've, you know, braided their hair or how they've done an updo and, you know, how they've created their own style and they have their own personality. And or, you know, social media is obviously so stimulated by information. There's always things I'm saving and seeing, old, new, past, present. But it's, you know, I think I have a healthy relationship with social media and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but it enabled me to move to LA, social media. And it was in the very beginning of Instagram where I got recognized by my work and it enabled me to sort of, you know, cross over the waters. But there was a lot of, like I say, work in between.
So you started super young, at like 13, you work in the salon.
I stayed in the salon for a long time. And then when I kind of I got to like the top price level and I kind of thought, well, what's next? I kind of made this now and I was still, you know, like 19. So then I realized there was another side of hair, like the editorial side. So photo shoots, you know, and I then got kind of invested in doing education programs. Like I did the L'Oreal ID Artist. And then I think it was called a HQ ambassador. There was like lots of different like programs where you were getting to have an exposure to outside of the salon. So it would be doing work on stage in front of other hairdressers, and then it would be educating, then it would be going to, you know, a different country and doing like a fashion show of hair. So it was very expressive in hair. And then I did the British Hairdressing Awards and kind of got into how you create a collection. What's the magic of a picture? You know, how does hair on a photograph differ to the client that comes into the salon and needs the hair to last 6 weeks versus an image that, you know, will last for 6 seconds? It might just be one piece of hair falling across the face, but it's a very different, you know, method of learning. Then went into Fashion Week and that sort of broke away all of the salon rules because, you know, sometimes you'd have 2 hours to do, you know, a model, but then the last 4 models would come in 10 minutes before the show and you'd have to create the same look. So you'd have to break it down of like, how can I, you know, problem solve this to make it still look the same, but not do all those long steps that I did from like blow drying the hair, sopping wet. So it'd be like blasting the hair off and there's 4 of us. And then you know, it was just kind of basically problem solving and that kind of changed the way I did hair. Then slowly, I guess I kind of fell more into the celebrity realm of doing editorial shoots. I was doing a bit of magazine work. I got an agent in London. And one day I worked with a makeup artist that worked with Rita and she said, you know, Rita's actually looking for a hairstylist. And I said, oh, I'd love to work with her. And that was kind of the beginning of my celebrity life. I started working with Rita and we had a great relationship. We worked together for a few years. And in posting her work, it was kind of a time of social media, Instagram starting off. I used to just post my work and all the different looks I create. And her hair was long and short. And we worked a lot with wigs and hair pieces and colors and putting jewelry in her hair. There was always something different. And then one day J-Lo's team reached out and asked if I was available to do her hair for the Vegas show. And so it was an email. So I deleted the email because I just thought, well, that's spam. That's crazy. And then I got another email again a couple of weeks later and I kind of thought, oh, wow, this is like real.
Happening.
Maybe. But then I thought, how does J-Lo know who I am? And then I realized, damn, social media is very powerful.
There is an interesting quote on your book where she said, I had my eyes on you for a long time.
Yeah,
And I was like,
well, that's what I thought. How does she have her eye on me? I mean, I'm just Chris from Leicester. And I kind of got to thinking, well, maybe I could go to LA and do this on a bigger scale with the people that I was always inspired by, that I used to work on to make my mom look like. Maybe I could work with them, and so I packed 2 suitcases, and it was pretty dramatic. I mean, I left my whole life and headed to LA with a dream.
Yeah.
And Hollywood is the land of dreams. Some people make it and some people don't, So I didn't know what was going to happen. But what I did know is I had a lot of ambition and I had a lot of determination.
Yeah.
And I also had a lot of skill. By that time, I was 30. So I'd spent 30 years of my life learning my craft from the age of 13. So really, I did know what I was doing, So I think when I did eventually get the opportunities, I was prepared. I knew how to execute a look.
In the book, you speak a lot about, your imposter syndrome always coming back. But at the same time, as you say, I think you have a strong conviction about, who you are and the hairstylist that you are and the skills that you developed. So it's always this kind of yin and yang of both doubting and both, going to the US with an empty suitcase and starting over.
I think it probably stems as a kid, I was bullied at school because doing hair at the age of 13, everyone said, oh, you're gay. Because there was no hairdressers that were, not in that particular time. People were very stereotypical and they were like, oh, you must be gay. And I thought, well, I don't want to be gay. That doesn't seem good. And because I was dyslexic, I was kind of told I was stupid a lot that was the impression I got from the messages I was receiving through my teachers. So I very quickly became focused on I'm going to show everyone I'm neither of those things. I'm not gay and I'm not stupid, And so I think I got very determined. So as much as it was imposter syndrome, I just was always, I guess, on a mission really to prove people wrong and prove that I was something. Being bullied it can be very hard on your self-esteem, but I always had this kind of retaliation where I was like, no, I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to accept this. It's just my journey. And I think that saved me in a lot of ways, that determination.
Yeah. And hairstyling and especially hair salon have always been, super inclusive spaces for LGBT community. It's quite common, but back then in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was a place where you can be truly yourself. Do you think it helped us in your personal development to be working in an industry like that?
I think in a way it made me become a performer. I think as hairstylists, quite often we're performing. I was always really interested in acting as a kid. And I didn't have the knowledge to know what to do with that. There wasn't, again, really a role model of how I could follow. It seemed like I was just going to drama school and really wasn't getting anywhere. So I stopped doing that. But I think I kind of coordinated that into my hairdressing life because you are, and most hairdressers watching this might relate, that you are a performer as a hairstylist because you don't just walk in and if you're in a bad mood, you can't be in a bad mood. If you're not feeling great and you've had a terrible morning, you have to present yourself to a client and be like, okay, it's about them. Yeah. I think as hairstylists, we're very much like a therapist and we're in a service environment where we're offering a service to a client. We kind of make it about the person sitting in their chair because that's their time where when they sit in that chair, it really is about them. So that's why I think to an extent as a hairstylist, there is a performance to it. And I'm not saying it's not genuine and it's not real, but it's just not necessarily about you in that moment.
In your book, you have many examples where you do the diagnostic with the clients, but it's not about their hair. It's not about if their hair is dry or if the color is fading. It's tell me about you and tell me about what you want to do and what you want to convey. And it's much more emotional. And I think it's super interesting because at L'Oréal, we taught stylists to do the right diagnostic, but it's more technical and you have a super emotional approach. Can you tell us more?
Well, I used to see people in the salon go up to women or men and they'd say, as a stylist, what are we doing today? Same as usual?
Yeah.
And the client would be like, oh yeah, sure. Because it's it's kind of what I got. I'm not necessarily unhappy, but I think I used to enjoy sitting down and saying, okay, so this is where you're at. Tell me a bit about your hair history. Where'd you start? How'd you get to this place? And then, if you could, is there anyone that inspires you? Is there any, hair and envy you have? When people will say all sorts of things I've always wanted to go lighter, but I know I can't, or I've always wanted to be a shade of red, but I know I couldn't. And I really found it interesting that we put these ideas of what we can and can't do on ourselves. And when you actually questioned them, they really didn't know where it came from. They'd be like, oh, well, I don't really know where that came from. I think someone once told me, but it might have been when they were 15 years old and, maybe a parent said, you suit bangs, because you have a big forehead, or you're the quiet one, your sister's the confident one. It's kind of like we carry these ideas of who we are for our whole lives, and it affects the way we present ourselves to the world. So when you start to break that down, there was a lot of possibility in the service being much bigger. And they'd come in for a cut, but it would be like a full colour consultation, a full transformation of their look. And I think that's what I'm good at. I think I'm good at helping people find who they truly are and how to express that with hair, and how hair is such a big part of your personality and your identity. And then that really got sort of drilled into me at a different time in my career, where I started to work with cancer patients, and women came in that had lost their hair due to cancer, and they were just like rabbits in headlights, because they said they would rather lose their breasts than their hair, because their hair really was their identity, and it said who they were to the world. So then when you take that away and they had no hair, they just felt like a sick person, and was presenting that way to the world. And I think that emotionally was very, very crippling for a lot of women that I worked with. So back then I worked with these wigs to make them look more natural.
Yeah.
Adding a root, low light in it, plucking the hairline. Those are things back then that weren't really being done. Wigs were very wiggy.
Yeah.
So to make someone feel like they had a part of their original self back, or a part of how they identified themselves, was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I, would have women say, oh my God, I feel like I can face this now. I feel like I can go about heading this, and maybe stabilize them a little bit in a time where they felt so lost. So I think there's so many people that are not seen, and I think seeing people truly for where they're at, but also maybe where they want to go and what they want to get to and what they want to change in their lives, and being a part of that journey is very incredibly powerful, and also creates a lot of loyalty.
Yeah. At L'Oréal, we say that beauty is essential, because sometimes people say, oh, beauty is superficial. No, it's the basis of our humanity and femininity. And I think hairstylists are so important, because they help us to feel that way. But also you are trying, to make, like, let's say, a regular woman to look the best, to look themselves. But when you are working with celebrity who, needs to change hairstyle every 2 days on the red carpet, I guess it's a totally different approach. So maybe sometimes they don't want to be themselves. They want to become someone else. So how do you struggle between those two kinds of goals and two realities,
Oh, it's not a struggle. I don't know. I thrive off it. I don't think I struggle. I think that's my superpower. I'm not really a beachy wave kind of guy. Like, I'm not a same as usual. Like, I like to evolve a look. I like to tell a story.
Yeah.
And if the outfit changes, so should their hair. I think, the hair is such a big part of the look. You can elevate a look. You can take it down. I just think that's my thing. That's what kind of turns me on, is like the evolution and telling stories with hair, and expressing yourself, creating an identity. And the hair is, for me, the most important part.
Yeah, of course. And since you came to LA, so you made your way up to success, now you're working with some of the women who are the most, exposed worldwide. So how does it feel, and what does it mean as a celebrity hairstylist to know that the next day we're going to say, oh, have you seen Kim Kardashian hair? It was amazing.
I don't really care so much about what people say.
Yeah.
I more care about the person that I'm working on, how they feel. If they feel good and they feel confident and they feel great, then that's my job, And I think the rest is just a conversation. I mean, someone's always going to have an opinion, and I'm okay with that. I'm very much at peace with the social media world and the internet and the highs and lows of it.
Yeah.
I write a chapter in my book about, I guess, envy and how powerful that can be to a lot of people. And when used in the wrong way, envy can be a really dark place for people to sit. And I think what I've always tried to do is to look at something that I'm inspired by, like if it's the way someone looks, or a body, or a hairstyle, or even just a job. I'd kind of use that person as a role model of like, well, how did they get to where they've got? Because I know it's a journey, and then that becomes very empowering, and you can be much more compassionate about people's stories and journeys and how they got there, and therefore be more supportive and more, patting them on the back when they do succeed, rather than some people that I think sit behind social media and probably don't feel good, and that's why they're writing negative comments, because, they feel unseen or unheard or whatever. So I've always tried and flip that on its head, and that's why I think I have a healthy relationship with social media. I think a conversation is good, because that's what makes it viral, conversation.
And there is no bad publicity.
I think I'm in a place in my life where I do know who I am, very comfortable with that. So therefore I lead with confidence in it, and I can, just take it for what it is and let it go.
What relationship do you have with your community? Are you speaking with them on a daily basis? Are they asking you for
I try
advice?
and respond to comments as much as I can. And, that's why I love working like on TV. I do the Drew Barrymore show and the Today Show. And I love doing the makeovers, making, real women look and feel their best and helping them solve their hair care journeys and stories. I do sort of TikToks and Instagram posts sometimes just about like hairstyles that will make you look older or, colors that will, change your life. Or I try and kind of not just keep it as like celebrity. I want people to feel like it's inclusive and that there's ways where they can like, okay, well, I don't look like J-Lo, but this is how. And break it down for people because I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key of your success, at least on social media, is the fact that you never gatekeep information. You're like, do you want to do the same look as Kim Kardashian? Here is how you should do it.
I think for me, I don't want to gatekeep just because I love inspiring people as I've been inspired by many others, and I think it's great to share that as a community. And it makes it a healthier place to be.
Absolutely. And what would be your advice for hairstylists today, especially on social media? I think the Gilo example was really significant because, hairstylists are doing busy job, to be honest. Days are long and sometimes they say, I do not have time to post on social media. But I think today it's really key, to show your work out there. How do you feel about that? I think you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't put your work on social media, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, social media changed my life. I understand it's a lot of work. Like, I just did a post this morning. It took me like 45 minutes to get all the tags, all the formulas, all this, tag the right brands, tag the right person, edit the video to how I like it, add the music choice. Do you like this caption? Do you like that? I'm asking everyone in the car, like, do you like this? Do you like that? So by the time I post it, I'm like, I'm exhausted. But then I know that's going to help thousands of people that watch it and like it or comment on it. Right. Maybe change something in their life. And I feel like I have a responsibility to help other people from what I know. A lot of people say, can you help me? Like, I'm stuck with this, or my hair's really thin and I need some tips. And I love helping other people. So I think, yes, it is hard work. And yes, it does take time. But to me, if you're doing the work anyway, that would be like, you want to go to the beach and you take a long hour's journey and you do 50 minutes of the drive and decide you're just too tired. And, you don't do that last 10 minutes and make it to the beach and have a beautiful day. I don't know. I think it's like just kind of like, why wouldn't you? If you're doing the work anyway, if you can somehow incorporate it into your life, get someone else to film it or get someone else to help you or, I think it's just great to show your work out there because it is a portfolio. It's a live portfolio. I mean, I used to have to go around with a portfolio around to all the agents in London and show them my work. It's this big fat portfolio. I have to print the freaking pictures and it was so annoying. Now you just put it up on Instagram. It's kind of easy. Just edit the picture or edit the caption, edit whatever it is, put it up, and that's online, and that's your portfolio. I think my tips for anyone on social media is to make sure you have pillars. So for me, I like to have pillars of who I am and what I'm putting out there and my content, whether that be, hair, my family life, fitness and health. For example, if you're a colorist, like, what is your thing? What are you good at? Are you blondes? If you're a blondes guy or a girl, or if you're a balayage specialist, or if you're, as a stylist, if you're particularly good at like, glamorous hair, bombshell hair, or if you're particularly good at like edgy, funky cuts, making sure you show that.
Yeah, to follow an editorial line and not to speak about everything all the time.
No, yeah, totally. Just show people what you're good at and why they're going to come to you and, what your strengths are. And make sure that, if you were looking at your page as a stranger, would you take that message away that you want people to from looking at your page? And sometimes people are quite surprised. They're like, I think they kind of get lost with posting and what they're posting and why. And I kind of think of it as a job, really. I'm trying to connect to an audience and tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your, management of celebrity, I would like to know, how does it work? Like, for example, someone is coming to you saying, I have the Met Gala in 2 months and I would like this. Or is it you who came up with the idea? I would like to understand the creative process.
I think Met Ball is just always on your mind because you do it and then you're instantly then thinking about the next Met Ball, what the theme's going to be and making sure it's booked. Yeah, it's always a conversation.
For example, the wet look that you made for Kim a few years ago, that was really viral back then.
Yeah, I think it's really based around the outfit and what the story is. When Kim recently wore the John Galliano and she wore the silver, that's when we decided to dye her hair platinum, and she had the dark root and her hair was this icy blonde. And the story was kind of about, I think it was Sleeping Beauty. It was like, you know, she kind of got up and we did this kind of loose braid in the back, and it was very kind of textured and tussled, like she'd kind of been caught in the hedges, and she put this cardigan on last minute on top of this glamorous outfit. It was kind of just telling a story. And the blonde kind of became a moment because she was wearing like silver. It was very cool toned, and we thought the blonde would be very cool, but we left the dark root, so it felt more lived in. And I don't know, you just storytelling, it just kind of evolved slowly. I think the braid happened last minute. We were going to wear it down and sort of textured and lived in, and that felt really good with the blonde. And then I think when she put the outfit on, we did like some pictures before. It kind of the hair covered the dress at the back or something. And I kind of just grabbed it and just kind of braided it, and that kind of became the thing. I don't know. As much as you can be organized with what you're going to do, quite often it can change last minute and you have to figure it out. For whatever reason, the outfit might change, something may not work, something might break, you might be covering something with hair, or you know, whatever. I think as a hairstylist, as much as you can plan, I think you have to be prepared for what could go wrong. The look may not work and they have to change it. I don't know, that's worst case scenario. But.
And besides your skills, what do you think it takes to be a good celebrity hairstylist? Why do you think that those personalities likes to work with you?
To be a great celebrity hairstylist, I think you have to have confidence. I think you have to know your craft. I think you have to be loyal, and I think you have to be very open to change. And I think you have to be fast. You need to know how to do hair in 2 hours, and you need to know how to do the same hairstyle in 2 minutes. You know, I've had times where it's literally live TV, and they're like, she's on in 1 minute, and there's no hair. You know, you have to know how to like change it out, because it's going to happen with or without you. So you got to kind of roll with it.
What is the skill or what is the technique that you like the most, or maybe that you master the most?
I don't know. I think you tell me. I don't know. I like it all. I think it's like, I don't really want to be pinned to do one thing. I think I like change. I think maybe that's my answer. Maybe it's just change, helping people to evolve. Because even if you've transformed someone and they're 25, you know, by the time they're 35, they're in a different time of their lives. You know, as you age, your skin tone changes, your hair texture changes, your hair color changes, your personality changes. You know, you go through a divorce, you go through a breakup, you've had highs and lows at work, you know, you might be in a financially different situation. Life is always changing. I think your hair should reflect that. And so I think that's kind of, I like to bring people to where they're at. That's like, you know, people with like the hair that's colored very dark, because that's what they wear when they're younger, but they've kind of just been stuck with it, and they have really white hair. They just were like, oh, well, brown is my hair color. And it's like, yeah, but as you've aged, your skin tone changes. You know, your personalities change. And it's kind of like bringing them up to date with actually what's going to work with them, what's going to be most flattering. But also personality types. Some people's personality is like, that can really change a lot. You know, some people might not necessarily want to do what's right for them, what suits them. They want to make a statement and go against it and have bright red hair because that's what they want. And, you know, that's kind of really important as well, because we're all individual and you have to tailor to that.
In your book, there are a few examples where you really read through people and you have this kind of super fine understanding of what they are looking for and why they are on your chair today. How do you develop these skills?
I think it's more just a thing of wanting someone to feel seen. So I just want them to feel like they've got my attention and I'm genuinely interested in helping them find the best version of themselves, whatever that may be. I just posted a colour transformation I did on the Today Show, and it was a blonde transformation, and I cut her hair short, and she looks like a completely different person. And she didn't even know. And it completely brought something different out in her that she didn't even know was there. But it's always there. She just never engaged in it. And it's so fun to see that come to life. And like I say, it creates such loyalty as well. We look in the mirror several times a day, but we don't kind of necessarily look and take a hard look at ourselves and see how we got ourselves there. I think a lot of people are not necessarily aligned with, you know, where they're going in their life, or, you know, who they are and what their outside appearance looks like. They kind of just inherited that appearance from childhood, or that they were kind of told, this is how you look, this is how you dress, this is what's right. And I think I've just been really fascinated to always kind of break that down with the client and find what really works for them. My greatest joy is bringing that out in people. I think it's really empowering for both people involved, me and for them, you know?
But trends also change very, very fast. Do you follow trends? Do you create trends, or do you follow your own vision?
I'll tell you my least favorite question.
Yeah.
I have to be really honest. Is, so what's happening for spring, summer? What's happening for autumn, winter? And I'm like, what are we back in the 60s? Like in the old days, I say older, but in the 60s, it was like the bouffant, and like the 80s was the perm, like the 90s was that kind of bombshell model, supermodel hair.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, now we are in a time where there is so much more inclusivity, and I think there is so much more freedom for expression, diversity. So whereas it's nice to have trends or I think it's nice to have inspiration, but not one size fits all.
Yeah,
and I think not everyone looks good with a bob. Not everyone looks great with like a layered long haircut. I think it's, for me, what the trend is like is to really find what works with the individual and really bringing that to life, because I think that's when something sells. That's when something becomes amazing. Mm-hmm. Or taking inspiration or an idea and tailoring it to the person that's sitting in the chair. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So today you are also, a creative director of ColorWow. Mm-hmm. You are an influencer. You are developing products, writing books. How does it feel, to have all these hats?
I talked a lot about evolving, right? So you evolve with your hairstyle and how that feels at different stages of your life. But I think just as a person, I never wanted to be stuck in a time zone. And I think I've had the luxury, and I'm so grateful to have started my career very young at the age of 13, yeah. But I'm now 42. So I don't want to do the things I did when I was 20. I don't want to do the things I did when I was 30. I want to evolve and grow as an artist, as an entrepreneur, as a hairstylist, as a performer. I think it's really important to celebrate new artists and new people coming in. I think it's great to evolve into a classic and to be, like I say, an entrepreneur in the space, to become a businessman, to inspire people in different genres and be a part of different genres and different conversations, because that's just life. It's always moving, and you kind of need to roll with it. It doesn't mean I'm not doing hair. Like I'm still doing, hair, and I don't do it as much. I tend to do some more of the bigger stuff now, rather than just every day. Only reason being is because I've also got my own stuff going on. Like I'll be on TV and I'll be doing a makeover. So I'm still doing hair, but it's like, with someone that's lost their hair to cancer, or someone that's been through, real hardship in their life, and I'm doing charity work with the Children's Hospital, doing wigs for kids, because that's really important to me as well, because it's a big part of, again, my story of helping people. And I think it's just good to be diverse and flexible. I never wanted to be rigid with my career or my decisions in life, because I've really spent my time and life encouraging people not to be rigid with theirs. So I think I have to lead by example,
You just wrote your book, which is here with us. And it's not a biography. It's really a book about advice, about self-development.
Self-help.
How do you come up with that? And congratulations also, because I think it's a New York Times bestseller. So it's really successful.
The book process was just, I guess it got to a point in my life where I felt like I had a lot to say. And I think a lot of people would say to me, oh my God, I want to sit in your chair. I want you to give me a consultation. I want you to do my hair, or, they'll be inspired by my work. And I guess I wanted to put pen to paper and help people in kind of vaster, wider way and connect to people. And I needed to show people a little bit more about Chris Appleton and scratch beneath the surface of this polished image, or this kind of idea of what people think I am, or my brand is, or what celebrity is, or Hollywood is, and tell some very honest and real stories, which is what I do in the book. There's some very personal, dark times in my life, lost times, low times, but how I kind of, created my comeback, and how I've incorporated that into my job and in my work. So like I say, it's part memoir, part self-help, and that combination has been really healing to do, and to be able to connect with people, and hopefully enables people to feel less alone and more seen in times where they felt lost. So I wrote it to anyone that doesn't feel seen, hasn't felt like they know where they're going in life, whether it might be, the haircut or the job or a relationship, or financial decisions. It could be anything. I think sometimes it's refreshing to hear other people's stories and journeys of how they've created their comeback.
Yeah. I wanted to speak with you about ColorWow, because you've been a global creative contributor of the brand for almost 10 years now.
I know, time flies.
Yeah, you're really actively co-creating the products. It's really a kind of entrepreneur business state of mind with styling products. Can you please tell us more?
I mean, it's kind of been a big part of my career. I think joining ColorWow was a chance because at the time, no one really knew who it was or what it was. Yeah. We had a root powder and a shampoo, but it wasn't huge at the time. And I think to get to the point now where it's grown into what it's grown into and see so many people, so many hairstylists, so many women, men, using the product universally for all different hair types, textures, ages, colors, I think has been something that, it's a journey I'm incredibly proud of because what we wanted to do with ColorWow was create a problem-solving hair care line that not only, performed in the styling category, but also in the, longevity of hair and making sure people, kept the quality of the hair. We weren't using products that were compromising the health or density of the hair. I think it's a very honest brand. I'm really proud to being a part of creating formulations, the messaging, connecting to an audience, and then to see this online support on social media of people that feel like they're a part of the family and, love the product so much is been really rewarding. But like I say, fundamentally what it comes down to is, great hair care products that help solve problems for
because the success
person.
of the brand has been amazing. The engagement of the community on social media, products have been viral, but since a long time before we even spoke about virality, but it's one of the most engaging brand on social media because people really see the results.
But as a businessman and, what we did with ColorWow, there was always a challenge of changing the narrative because one thing would work and then we got COVID and all of a sudden everywhere's closed. And it's like, well, what do we do now? How do we, and that's when the social media, kind of presence took off in such a big way. TikTok was so huge during COVID and how, you kind of had to swim or sink.
Yeah.
And we decided to swim. I think we changed the whole narrative. And that's constant, always changing, always approaching things in a different way to get that message out there to help people feel connected and, a part of the family.
How do you think you managed to last in this industry? Because it's I guess, super competitive industry and longevity can be difficult, I guess. How do you, keep fresh? How do you always bring up new ideas, new looks, new trends?
I just let go. I don't really care about, fame or success in terms of putting that out there and, needing to have enough likes or needing something to be viral. I don't approach it from that angle. I don't go in and do Kim Kardashian's hair thinking she's Kim Kardashian. We have a great relationship and we're friends, but when I'm doing her hair, I'm there to, provide a service and make her look and feel her absolute best and do everything I can to help achieve that. So I don't really think about the competition or I don't really think about longevity. I more think about where I'm at and concentrating on doing a great job and, not ever feeling complacent of I've done this before, I'm fine. Every job I do, every red carpet, I'm always nervous, I'm always apprehensive, I always want the best, I always do my research, I always prepare, a million options and I turn up to, to do my job well. Yeah. I'm always questioning myself. Yeah. Is this good enough? Oh my God, that one piece of hair. Or, I think I'm always challenging that conversation. I have a healthier relationship with it now. I think one point I used to sort of be very hard on myself and it would take me days to get over it. And now I'm like, look, I can't control every strand of hair and I'll learn from, little things that I'd want to perfect and just take that in my pocket and move on. Whereas before I used to, I think you have to have a healthy relationship. And when we were talking about mental health, that's why it's so important to, it's okay. My OCD makes me a critique at, the work I do, but I've also learned to have a healthy relationship with that.
When you doubt, it's good because when you stop doing it, it's when you fail. If you are too confident and if you are not, putting yourself a little bit at risk.
Like I said, I like to keep things moving and evolving so I don't get to that place, Things that excite me, something that inspires me and I can, tell my story in different ways.
Yeah. And when we were talking about ColorWow and about the COVID period, I think now since 5 years, hair care is booming. It's much more bigger than before styling as well. People started to take care of their hair like they were taking care of their skin. Now it's a huge category. What do you think about that? What is your take on this specific area and momentum that hairstyling industry is living right now?
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it's something I've always believed in, and I think it's, something I've always seen was a gap in the market. So it's great just to see that filled because, I think people are really realizing, and maybe COVID made people realize like how important the hair was, and people having these crazy roots, or they weren't having the hair blown out and they didn't even know what to do with it, and I think people realized how important the hair was to them, and also actually the journey of doing hair and how it's not as easy as picking up a pair of scissors and trimming your fringe, because it could go really bad. I think people had a newfound respect for their hairstylist in a way, and also there's so many more boundaries and barriers we've broken down. Like, all right, well, I'm inspired by, I don't know, Selena Gomez, but, she had some clip-in extensions in, or, and people now are like, oh, that ponytail was a clip-on ponytail. People are now like, oh, I'll buy that. Like, before, things like that were like just for celebrities, whereas now, be like, oh yeah, most girls have some clip-ins or a ponytail that I'll add, or, they know that. I think we're much more open with the techniques, and that's why on social media I try and show, okay, well, this, you don't necessarily look like this person, but this is how, and break it down, because people are like, oh wow, cool, I can do that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so inspired by some of the videos on TikTok and how girls are doing the hair and the things they're doing to it. They're so like clued up now.
Even if you do not work in a salon right now, what do you think a salon should provide today when you understand the needs of your customers?
I think people should provide, a full service, up to date on the latest techniques, the latest developments in products and hair care and color. And I think probably what salons really need right now is to really make the client feel individual and feel seen and feel like they're having a personalized experience which is tailored to them, no matter how much of the outside noise, because I think that's what creates loyalty to a stylist and to a salon, when they feel like they're being seen and heard, because there's always so much more competition. And why are they going to come to me as opposed to go to the salon down the road? What is it about the service I'm offering and, the techniques I'm using that is going to make that client stay with me?
Yeah. And what advice would you give to your younger self or to young hairstylists coming into the business and the industry right now?
I mean, God, there's so many times I've been told no or laughed at, or I don't know, so many times I did not win. I did not. It's hard. And there's going to be so many no's and so many pushbacks. But then you'll get a few wins and you'll get a few yeses, and they build over time. And then you get to a place where people go, oh, wow, you've done really good. And it's like, yeah, but I guess. But there's also been a lot of journey. And to not give up at your first fall and to try and learn from the no's or learn from your mistakes and to keep moving anyway.
And so what's next for you?
Well, to become a New York Times bestseller this year was one of my bucket lists, and something I never really thought I was going to achieve. So people obviously like the storytelling, so maybe I could dive back into that. Maybe at one point people just knew me for taking my top off on social media and being that guy with the blonde tips and the lad from England that made it to Hollywood. But I think there is so much more I'm excited to share about my story and to learn about others, and to, as a community, feel like, we're in a community that's supportive and it's a safe space, because I think it's honestly one of the industries we do work so hard, and being a hairstylist isn't easy. It's incredibly challenging. You're giving all the time. And I think there's also a real importance to be able to know, to give back to yourself and find balance with that. And I think a lot of my journey was about finding balance, because many times in my life there's not been the right balance. And, a lot doesn't happen when you don't find the right balance. And in finding who you truly are is incredibly powerful, because it enables you to really transform your life. And like I say, create your comeback at any age. You're never too late. And a lot of people listening to this or reading my book over the age of 30 or 40 might think, oh, it's too late for me. But it never is too late.
Yeah. And how do you see the future of the industry?
I feel like it's so weird. I mean, I'm not seeing any here in London, but in LA, there's these cars that drive themselves everywhere. And I remember watching Back to the Future as a kid, and it just didn't feel real. And now I'm seeing these things, I'm like, oh my God, these cars just drive themselves. They're so cute. And if you think about hair care, what's going to happen to hair care? There's going to be so many crazy developments of product, innovation and techniques. And interesting to see where AI takes us and how we will combine that into our workload and how, I think as hairstylists, I don't know how much can be taken from, the craft of our own hands and our own personalities and what we give to a client. Because like I say, it's not just technique and it's not just cut and color. It's very much about also being like a therapist and that client being in the chair, which I don't know how you could, match that. But I am excited to see how the world of AI will be incorporated into the world that we live in and how that will change things. And look, it's happening anyway. So you might as well not fight it. You might as well just go with the waves. I think when people are so resistant, like even social media, so many people are resistant to it and refuse to ever be on it. And then they're kind of bitter because they didn't, keep up or whatever. I think you can have a healthy balance with just, knowing at least what's going on, how it works, and having an understanding of it. But I think it's going to be, in the next 10 years, I think it's going to be some crazy developments.
Yeah.
And I just hope they find a bleach that doesn't break your hair off.
Yeah.
So you could be platinum blonde
and then
in
brunette.
really short time with just like no compromise to your hair.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
We're going to see each other again in 10 years to catch up.
I will be 52 then. And if I don't look 21...
You don't want to be there.
Don't talk to me.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure to have you with us on Cutting Edge, the podcast.
Thank you so much to talk to me. I really enjoyed it. It was lovely to spend some time with the L'Oreal family and get to know a little bit more about you guys and for you guys to be so welcoming. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chris. It is such an honor to listen to Chris discuss his life journey and vision, blending personal growth, hairstyling skills, and social media mastery. Hairstylist, we invite you to explore the many viral looks, visuals, and styles that Chris has created during his career and will continue to offer in the future. Be sure to also read his New York Times best-selling book, Your Roots Don't Define You. Thank you for listening to this new episode of Cutting Edge, the podcast, an exclusive podcast series by L'Oréal Professional Products. Don't hesitate to subscribe and rate this podcast. And remember, all our episodes are available on every major streaming platform.